In last week's episode, we talked about Dark Souls and the Soulsian. Let's see what you had to say. So first things first, I just want to say that all of the conversations that happened on the subreddit and on YouTube and Facebook were amazing. It was a pleasure getting to read all of your comments. They were so good and so smart and really interesting, and I just had a really great time. Not that I don't usually have a great time, but I had an exceptionally great time. So I just want to say thanks for saying so many smart and thoughtful things. It really makes me want to teach like a genre studies course using Dark Souls as the main like branching off point. So any universities out there looking to hire someone, just let me know. CesarSamuel on the subreddit wrote a really great comment about Dostoevsky's The Idiot and its relationship to Dark Souls and the importance of sort of seeing beyond death or being able to see past the finality of death and kind of seizing the importance of the work that you are doing without having this sort of vague, menacing end point in mind. And I think that this is a really interesting metaphor for Dark Souls, and there was a really great response from Del J, who agreed and talked about how that fits thematically within Dark Souls and talks about the crestfallen warrior archetype. And I haven't read The Idiot in a really long time, but I am currently reading Crime and Punishment, and I actually just got to the portion of the book where Porfiry confronts Raskolnikov and sort of talks about the importance of suffering and how some people need to suffer and that this is how they find value in themselves and in the world, and that it's good for them, and that maybe Raskolnikov needs to suffer in some way. And I just, this was it all sort of came together at a great moment. Crime Thug writes a really great comment about not Dark Souls, but a video game that is arguably almost tonally at least the opposite of Dark Souls, Animal Crossing, and about how it also could be seen to organize its own precursors. And I just wanted to point this out because I think this is a really great and interesting comment and a place that I did not expect the conversation to go. We'll put a link to this one and all the others in the doobly-doo. Three Kinds of Salt comment focuses on something that I didn't even consider when writing the script, which is the physical aspect of playing Dark Souls, and that difficulty comes from combat, but the sort of basement level of that difficulty is actual, the physical manipulation of a controller. And we talked a little bit about Dark Souls or the Soulsian being inherently visual in a way that the Kafkaesque is not, but it is also inherently physical. And they talk about the Dark Souls board game, and whether or not that will be the Dark Souls of board games in a way beyond sort of just by title. And I was actually having a conversation with my girlfriend about a speculative Dark Souls pinball machine. Like, what would a Dark Souls pinball machine look like? Because I think the thing that we were trying to get at was this idea of physicality, was what would you have to do? What would you have to manipulate with a pinball machine to make it Dark Souls-like, beyond just, putting a bunch of knights on it and putting some swords in there? And this is a thing that I've been thinking about a lot. My gut right now says at least more than one button on each side of the pinball machine. Sci-Fi 39 writes a really great comment that says that if anything, Dark Souls is the Kafka of video games, and does a really great kind of thematic analysis to show how those two things, beyond the kind of, organizing their own precursors idea, have a lot in common. They have a lot that they share between them. And I just thought this was super interesting. JBantha, did you consider doing a run of the episode with no armor, just completely naked? In all seriousness though, there was a moment when I was putting this episode together where I had considered having to do the episode, having to deliver the script in one go, and if I messed it up, having to go back to the beginning and then work my way forward. But I didn't want to put Morgan through that torture. You're welcome. But this raises the question, I think, what is the Dark Souls of YouTube channels? Oh, never mind. Fluoridated H2O writes a really great comment that is a two-sense definition of the Soulsian. The first sense being a little bit more aesthetic, and the second sense being a little bit more kind of affect-oriented. And I would say that there might even be a second part to the second sense, or maybe a third sense, that beyond the appreciation of difficulty, there's kind of, the difficulty works as a key to content or understanding, and that the content and understanding works as a key to the difficulty, that they both kind of unlock or expand one another in a certain way. But yeah, I think this is great. Joshua Bell lays out a bunch of different sort of aspects of the Soulsian beyond difficulty, and ways that you may value something that is Soulsian in some way, but talks about how, for him, the main part is the idea that people are kind of in it together. There's a lot of sharing of information. There are a lot of ways for you to share that information, both in-game and out of game. And this made me think about the fact that, we didn't really talk about PvP or PvE versus PvP as it relates to Dark Souls, and how that provides an additional layer of, I think, complexity and involvement and affect in the game. And this is something that Adam Telfer talks about a little bit in his comment from the Facebook page, that, in a way, he talks about how Dark Souls is kind of like the American dream, that like hard work will pay off in the end, but that in Dark Souls, it does actually maybe tend to pay off if you really stick with it, whereas there's no guarantee that that is the case in real life, and that there is an additional layer of togetherness that is channeled by that idea and is channeled in Dark Souls. And I think that's an aspect of this that a lot could be said about. Brett Shields, I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I didn't even look it up, because the first time I ever heard it was on a podcast. So I just assumed that the person who was saying it right, because they seemed smart. RC3651 uses a word to describe Dark Souls that would never have occurred to me, but I think makes sense in the sort of context of its fairness, and that word is respect. That there is a certain amount of respect that Dark Souls gives to its players. It sort of gives them, I think, credit, gives them the benefit of the doubt, and I think that also relates to the stuff we were talking about before with Joshua Bell's comment and Adam Telfer's comment about people kind of being in it together. That I think Dark Souls assumes that if you get stuck, you can use the game to help you, but you can also use the world to help you. And I feel that is maybe part of Dark Souls in a way that it's not in other games. So yeah, I think respect is an interesting way to render this idea. Krakalu, so this is a multi-part response. Actually, Morgan is the one who speaks French, and he helps me a lot with pronunciation, and I would embarrass myself even more than I do now saying things incorrectly without his help. However, Judex, is Latin, it turns out, not French. And even though I studied Latin for quite a while, I still somehow managed to mess this up. So thanks for letting me know. Shane Tilton, longtime friend of the show, great commenter, writes very, very smart things, is a very smart dude, wrote what I am going to deem the Dark Souls of comments left on a video that is about the Dark Souls of things. So I'm just gonna read Shane's comment because I love it. Shane Tilton. I could be way off on this, but an intellectual creative work can be both Kafkaesque and Soulsian, as one represents a thematic depiction and type of understanding of the world, Kafkaesque, while the other represents the structure of the world and the functionality of the objects within the world, Soulsian. There's not a sense of a rhetorical Soulsian view of the world, as the language is secondary to the effort of the actor within the world. The Gothic thematic itself is not Soulsian, as the wrapping of the world is not that rewarding by itself. I think Soulsian is a type of Sisyphusian effort if Sisyphus could choose the correct path out of millions of paths and lock the stone into place at the top of the hill. If we had balloons left from the episode we just shot, I would drop them. I love that comment. And finally, a list of things that are the Dark Souls of other things. Cue the music. Lay's Classic are the Dark Souls of chips. Lars von Trier is the Dark Souls of filmmakers. Kubrick is the Dark Souls of directors, maybe. Ulysses is the Dark Souls of books. A lot of votes for Ulysses is the Dark Souls of books. And I'm gonna say that I don't know if I'm entirely on board with this. I think for me, Merleau-Ponty, the Phenomenology of Perception, which we quoted in our Deadpool episode, might be the Dark Souls of books. This is highly subjective, but for me, it has the same effect of, I read it, I'm very, very challenged by it. I work very, very hard to understand it. I move very slowly. I repeat things over and over and over again, but I always make progress, and the progress always gets me into that like flow state, you know, like, and then suddenly 4.5 hours is gone, and you know, I have to go to bed. So yeah, but Ulysses, I can understand why. I get it. Back to the list. Technical death metal is the Dark Souls of music. I love that. Finishing Monopoly is the Dark Souls of tabletop games. True. Removing the free parking house rule is like choosing a ranged class. Yes. Exercise is the Dark Souls of health. Running is the Dark Souls of exercise. The Dark Souls of literature is clearly Blood Meridian. Sure. Thomas Pynchon is the Dark Souls of authors. David Lynch and/or Jodorowsky are the Dark Souls of film directors, and flossing is the Dark Souls of personal hygiene.